Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back to your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about Ripple and XRP, as well as the vast majority of crypto and finance. And with that being said, I hope that you are all having a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are out there in the world. Now, I really want to talk about a few things happening with the SEC right now. So it all started going back to December 24th, where we did see the SEC says that it deeply regrets the errors made in the case against crypto firm Debtbox, but believes that sanctions are unnecessary. Now, we did see a video get posted a few days later by Crypto Law US, and we do see the SEC is like an arsonist, setting fires and blaming it on the companies they set ablaze, according to Campbell J. Austin. And when you see the SEC fails to do their due diligence, file suit, and harms companies like Debtbox along the way. Check this video out.
So the way I describe this sort of behavior when the SEC does it is it's a little bit like burning somebody's house down and then complaining that it was a fire hazard. Like, you don't get to do that if you're the arsonist. And so I would say this is very severe. One, it's a pattern of conduct with the SEC now. This is not the first time they're getting slapped around in court for, quite frankly, not doing their job before filing things. So
yeah, as we really look at the SEC, they're not doing any homework before they go after these companies. And I think that that's where we start to see the big problem. But the issue here is that everyone is looking at the SEC and saying, all right, well, Gary Gensler needs to be fired, which I completely agree. Listen, I don't like Gary Gensler. I don't like what the SEC has been doing. And it goes back before Gary Gensler was even in office. You can go back to Jay Clayton. You can go back to Bill Himmon. You name it, right? But the reason why I'm bringing this back up is because I've been seeing a lot of posts regarding this, and it really stems from Congress, which we will talk about here in a second. But by the end of this video, and I do think that everyone should stay around until the end of this video, we're going to talk about a few bombshells regarding crypto and crypto regulations. But first, let's go over here to James K. Filan, XRP Community XRP, for your information from Wall Street Journal, noting Ripple win and quoting Stuart Alderoty. The SEC's willingness to sue crypto companies or projects doesn't scare the industry as much as it used to, according to Stuart Alderoty, chief legal officer of Ripple Labs. And, you know, it really is true. Like, as we look at what's been happening around the SEC and what Gary Gensler has been doing, I don't think these companies really care anymore. I've said it before in the past, right? Like, how much weight does the SEC even hold to their name at this point? Because this entire year has been nothing but L's given out to the SEC. And even prior to this year, going back to 2022, I think everyone in this space realized that the SEC is not working for the retail sector. They're working for somebody else. And I think that it all stems back to even them allowing FTX to walk through their doors multiple times, have these private meetings, and of course, let them off the leash. So as we really look at what's been going on here, yeah, I think that a lot of people are coming to the realization that the SEC and Gary Gensler, there's no weight to their name around crypto. There's none. They don't make the rules. There is no rules to follow. There's no transparency. There's no clarity. But we are not the only ones that are outraged against Gary Gensler and the SEC. Republican lawmakers called for the removal of SEC's Gary Gensler over bias and damage to the digital asset industry, and this goes back to just yesterday at roughly 7:39 p.m. And it's all regarding his regulatory approach. It's extremely harming for not only the entire retail sector, but also for the U.S. itself in terms of innovation. And this is all going back to what Warren Davidson has been addressing. But this is the statement now. U.S. capital markets must be protected from a tyrannical chairman, including the current one. It's time for real reform and to fire Gary Gensler as the chair of the SEC. And again, I love to note that he is saying including the current one, meaning the ones prior to Gary Gensler were also abusing their power. But now we also see Democrats also turning on the SEC chair over increased regulation. And this is crucial to note because this is a big deal. This is actually a very big deal now that both sides are actually turning on him. And they're actually talking about how he's a politician masquerading as a regulator, which is a pretty shocking statement to say the least. But beyond this, the reason why I bring this back up and the reason why I'm talking about a lot of this is because we just recently seen Warren Davidson say that 2024 would be a great time to fire Gary Gensler and hold the SEC accountable for its corruption. But beyond this, we also seen another statement just recently that says just in, U.S. Congressman Tom Emmer announces that he is co-leading an SEC stabilization bill in effort to fire Chairman Gary Gensler. Now, let's address this. Let's talk about this. These bills have been around for a few months now. They first got welcomed in during the financial committee meetings regarding the congressional meetings with Gary Gensler. And since then, we haven't really seen too much traction on these bills. Now, I would love to see how much support this gets, because again, as we look at Gary Gensler and the SEC, they are a big problem for the entire industry. But I fear who is going to come after Gary Gensler, right? Because the last roughly 2-3 chairmen of the SEC were no better. All three of them were bad actors, technically, in the faith of the retail sector. So who is going to be the chairman of, the SEC after Gary Gensler? Is it going to be any better? This is the problem. But also, does it even matter, right? Because we have been hearing this for a while. Going all the way back to September is when we've seen the oversight of the SEC within, of course, crypto and even outside of crypto. This is from the Financial Services Committee, like I said. And we listened to this closely. There's a lot of bombs being dropped. They were talking about how Gary Gensler is failing. They completely, they hit him with everything, right? But the problem is that nothing came from it. Gary Gensler is still here, still making terrible decisions, and still attacking companies within crypto. Now, from this, we did see quite a bit of quotes thrown at Gary Gensler. This goes back to September 28th, just a day after this meeting, because, again, like I said, they threw everything at Gary Gensler. And again, a lot of these quotes are definitely significant. For an example, here we have "you are kneecapping the U.S. capital markets with the avalanche of red tape coming out of your commission." And yeah, it's not just crypto; it's multiple markets. I wish the Biden administration would say you're fired. We have a Gary Gensler problem, and even the SEC Gov has a structural problem as well. That's when they introduced the SEC Stabilization Act, which, like I said, hasn't seen much traction at all. And there was a lot of other major quotes here as well. But as we really look at what's been going on, right? When we address the things that have happened in just the last couple years, we obviously know that the SEC Gov, and we even know that Gary Gensler, are two of the largest problems around regulations within crypto. They are holding the industry back. But what is actually happening? Because I feel as though everyone is just looking at the surface and saying, all right, yeah, this is the problem. What's really going on here? And does Gary Gensler leaving the SEC do anything? Well, let's talk about it. So I seen this video get posted by XRP Drops, and it's from the Paul Barron Network podcast. We do see regulatory clarity by the Supreme Court, ? Coinbase's petition for clear crypto regulation was denied by the SEC. The last time the CFTC and the SEC disagreed on the jurisdiction of an asset class, it was settled by the Supreme Court. Derivatives in 2000, both the CFTC and the SEC received jurisdiction. Check this video out.
I'd say there's also a mindset difference. Just in the last few days, the SEC basically has denied the need for regulatory clarity at all. Coinbase had asked for it, and they, of course, are going to appeal that decision. But the SEC is repeating once again, no, the regulatory structure we have in place is fine for crypto. And this also happened when derivatives became a question, and the SEC and the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, started bucking heads against this idea that one had control versus the other. And ultimately, that went to the Supreme Court, to Ophelia's point. It took many years, and in 2000, there was a decision, I think it was 2000, there was a decision that gave both of them jurisdiction and was very clear about which had jurisdiction over what and what they both had to agree on. So I think the same thing's going to happen here, and that Coinbase will take this to the Supreme Court.
Now, of course, I really don't want us to go to the Supreme Court with a lot of these things because, again, it could ride out for a very long time. But the good news is that XRP, right? The ruling on XRP didn't go to the Supreme Court, but it seems as though there is a problem, right? We need some sort of other regulatory body on the case. But is it the Supreme Court? What's actually happening? Well, let's look into it. The FSB, the Financial Stability Board. I've mentioned this multiple times already on the channel. Face value, you could already see a name that jumps out, which is Michael Barr. For those that don't know, he was an advisor at Ripple. He went over to the Federal Reserve shortly after. But here we have Gary Gensler, who is another major leader within the Financial Stability Board. He is on the board of directors here. But look at all of the other major names here: the IMF, the World Bank, the BIS, the OECD, the ECB, major banks, the European Commission, the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, International Association of Insurance Supervisors, International Organization of Securities Commissions, International Accounting Standards Board, the Committee on the Global Financial System. Listen, this is the organization to watch for, not the SEC, not the CFTC, not, the Supreme Court. This is the group within crypto that you need to be looking at. And why? Let's go back to June. The FSB proposed framework for the international regulation of crypto asset activities, Executive Summary. This goes back to June 29th. This was a big one. It mentioned fully stablecoins and the potential benefits, things like that around crypto. They even addressed the regulatory bodies regarding this. Here's the 9 high-level recommendations. You can see everything regarding it: risk management, governance, cross-border cooperation, things like that. There's a lot within this to unpack, but for the most part, this is them planning on actual regulations within crypto. And it's something that we haven't really seen before because guess what? The SEC hasn't been doing anything. Is this on purpose, or is it them being instructed not to do anything while causing as much chaos as possible around crypto to the point where it shakes multiple individuals out? When I say multiple, I mean large portions of the market being shaken to its core. Again, look at how much people lost with Luna, with even FTX. Hell, go back to the XRP lawsuit. $15 billion was lost initially off of that. But also, Ripple was able to comment on the regulatory frameworks with the FSB back in December of 2022, which I mentioned heavily, while in the middle of a lawsuit with one of, again, the major players that are on the board of directors, the SEC, with Gary Gensler. So think about how interesting that actually is. But also, back in July, we did see the FSB finalize their global regulatory framework for crypto asset activities. And here are the key bullet points to really look at. So the final recommendations incorporate learnings from events of the past year in crypto asset markets and feedback received during the FSB's public consultation. Framework is based on the principle of same activity, same risk, same regulation, and provides a strong basis for ensuring that the crypto asset activities and so-called stablecoins are subject to consistent and comprehensive regulation commensurate to the risk they pose. The FSB and standard-setting bodies will continue to coordinate in promoting globally consistent regulation by considering the need for further guidance or standards and monitoring implementation status at jurisdictional level. Now, remember, right? As we really look at this, we know that they're already working together on this, and this is for a global crypto framework. And why is that crucial to note? Because they don't want to have fragmentation within regulations. They want everything to be on par and have it all fully set globally. They even talk about CBDCs within this. They talk about digitalized central bank liabilities, things like that. This is addressing every aspect of the market. But beyond this, going back to, again, July 18th with Tobias Adrian and a lot of the individuals from the IMF, which, again, do I need to mention that Tobias Adrian was also, or is a name on the FSB. We have crypto needs comprehensive policies to protect economies and investors. Establishing effective policies has become a priority for our authorities amid the failure of some exchanges and collapse of certain crypto assets. By the way, Tobias Adrian is also the individual that was noted at that private meeting with Brad Garlinghouse, with the ECB, or I should say Christine Lagarde at the time, and many other high-ranking individuals from the BIS, from the IMF, the World Bank, you name it. Tobias Adrian was one that actually noted Ripple's specific use within cross-border payments. But we have the global push for clearer policies on crypto assets has gained momentum under the Indian G20 presidency. As this work continues, it's important to recognize the progress already achieved, but more is needed, especially in implementing global standards. And again, they do mention Terra, they mention FTX. Again, I think that we should be fully looking in to what's actually happening here, because even within this report, we actually see the IMF will continue to support the G20 by delivering to the Leaders Summit in September a joint IMF FSB synthesis paper highlighting the building blocks for effective crypto policies. In addition, we are committed to providing tailored capacity building to our 190 members based on the above recommendations and emerging guidelines from standard setters. Our surveillance program will also assess the effectiveness of policy frameworks, including crypto. Again, when we look at the plan here, the plan of action is the fact that the FSB is the major player here. And it's because as we look at the FSB, look at all of the major regulatory bodies that are a part of this. Every single major player around regulatory bodies is a part of this. And even when you look at these papers, for example, like the regulatory framework for crypto asset activities from the FSB, this was instructed by the G20. We actually see that G20 tasked the FSB to coordinate the delivery of an effective regulatory, supervisory, and oversight framework for crypto assets. And this is with the help actually of the IMF, the BIS, the World Bank, you name it. So this is something to note. It's crucial to understand because I feel as though everyone is getting caught up in the idea that the SEC is failing. Gary Gensler is doing this. Gary Gensler is doing that. But at the end of the day, I actually think that this is all by plan. And I think that the overall plan of action here is, let this drag out as much as possible. Have Gary Gensler and the SEC completely harm the market as much as they possibly can as well by shaking out the weak hands while the big players come in. Again, we've talked about this in the past. The SEC is ultimately just the key that's unlocking the door for Wall Street to take hold of this market while regulatory settings are getting put in place. And it all happens around the end of 2024 and to the end of 2025. So in the next roughly 2 years, we are going to see a lot of major moves happening around regulatory issues and also policies on crypto. So as we look at this SEC nonsense, listen, I completely agree. I don't like Gary Gensler. I don't like the SEC, but I feel as though a lot of this is getting blown out of proportion and it could very well be a distraction method. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you guys did enjoy the video, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Peace out.